but are you ready to start?
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, guys, welcome to this episode of FlickFans. I'm Eric.
James.
And before we get started, guys, just, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, leave comments, all that good stuff. And before we get into it, I kind of wanted to talk about a couple news things real fast. Comic-Con wasn't too long ago by the time that this is uploaded, and a lot of Marvel stuff came out. And thought we could just talk about that real fast. And some big things. Thor, Love and Thunder with Natalie Portman coming back as Lady Thor.
Yeah.
I don't know a whole lot about the Thor mythology, so I'm curious of how she gets his powers, and I assume it's not like he loses them for her to have them. I feel like they can like coexist. I don't know. So I'm intrigued to figure out like why and how she gets them.
Beats me, man. Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
idea either. That was kind of a shock to me when you told me about that.
Yeah, because it was just rumored that there would be a fourth Thor movie, and then like a couple days later, it was like, and she's back, and we're doing that. I'm like, wow, crazy. Um,
It's definitely
uh,
something different.
Definitely something different. Blade with Mahershala Ali, the guy from Green Book and Moonlight, and Luke Cage is gonna be Blade, so that's kind of cool.
That is cool.
Might hold on. Anyway, yeah, I'm curious to see how they're going to introduce vampires into the Marvel universe, because even with X-Men or mutants, they kind of worked around that where it was more like people were experimented on. So I guess with Doctor Strange, though, they opened up the mystical kind of side of things. So
Yeah,
I'm
I read
curious.
a ton of comics and stuff where it was all zombies or
Oh yeah, yeah.
fires, and I'm assuming in the movie they might do some sort of thing with like a vampire outbreak where it's like kind of the mutant thing where they're tested on or some disease gets spread that turns people into these creatures and stuff.
That'd be cool. I mean, I haven't seen the newest Spider-Man yet, but there were talks about that movie kind of opening up the multiverse kind of stuff. So, maybe something with the snaps with the Infinity Stones kind of open up these portals. But I can't remember if I heard something about how the multiverse isn't really happening yet, but that was just some misdirection in the movie. I don't know.
Right.
Should we move on to the topic at hand, Citizen Kane?
I think we should.
The greatest movie ever made, guys. There hasn't been one single film better since 1984 when it came out. There hasn't been a single movie.
It
Or
was 84.
it was 1984 if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, seemed older.
Actually, wait. I wrote down 1841. That can't be true. Yeah, 1941.
1940. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, just a typo on my end. But James, how about you start this off? Because this is your first time watching it, right?
Yeah, it took me probably 3 tries to watch it all the way through. I
Mm-hmm.
was not a fan. I'm gonna be
No,
completely honest, not at all.
really.
I mean, it was like I thought the whole concept was interesting, and
Mm-hmm.
I liked Citizen Kane or Charles Kane's character and everything like that. I thought that was, just from like a psychological standpoint, I thought that was very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because he just kind of seemed like he was just like, I don't care about money, and like, I'm trying to do like good things and all that stuff like that. But then it kind of turned into him just being like one of those people that's like, I know what I like. The only thing he really cares about is what people think of him, and so he wanted to create this image. And then,
Yeah.
it's like then towards the end, it's kind of revealed that there was something actual that actually held sentimental value to him and that he did genuinely care about, and it wasn't just a image thing and all that. So
Yeah, I mean there are definitely a lot of themes about money and power and wealth and sort of the corruption of a human soul, I guess, right? Because I forget, I don't think I wrote it down exactly in my notes, but there's a quote in the movie where he says something about like, you know, no no good person is wealthy or something like that. Like he kind of admits that money sort of makes people less decent.
and that you have to do indecent things to gain that amount of money.
Yeah, I well here's what I'm thinking though, because everyone to this day is still like that's the bar, right? Is like, oh, we're not making Citizen Kane over here. Um, but would you say that there's a movie that has tackled maybe those same themes or similar themes, but just in a more interesting way?
I think Wolf of Wall Street kind of gave off a similar vibe. There's,
That's a
it,
fun movie.
it really is. That movie I absolutely loved,
Hmm.
and has gotten ruined by the frat boy type community with the
I can
whole.
see that.
You know what I mean? There's all that's all their favorite fucking movie,
Hmm.
but
Um,
they like it for the wrong reasons.
my whole thing with, it still being regarded as the greatest movie ever made, what we were just trying to say is there were so many limitations, and film itself was very different back then, where uh it definitely is impressive for the time, and
I
you
agree
can watch
with
that
that.
and say, if you learn a little bit, like cameras were really big, so really all the
Yeah,
movement that they do is pretty impressive, because it's not like, you had a little GoPro and you can put it on a little gimbal and run around, it's
right.
big, table size things. Um but I was gonna say, oh wait, oh, what's it called? Premium Rush is a movie where they had to coordinate all these blocks and cities of, I mean, streets of New York where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's going on a bike, and they
Mm.
had to coordinate all the traffic. They had to put up all these cameras to get like all these different angles and that kind of thing, and it's really impressive. But you couldn't do that back then. So I feel like for when people are saying that it's still the best movie, it's like you're not open-minded to see the progression of the technology and the art form. Kind of like with just Wolf of Wall Street, right? It's a more interesting, can keep your attention more, but it has similar ideas. And it's like that's just storytelling changing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, all things considered, Citizen Kane was an impressive movie. I'll give it that. There are, like, because I did know that it was very old, and it was good looking considering the time and everything. I
Yeah.
just, it wasn't just something that could really hold my attention, just as a story and everything that was going on. And also, I think this happens in a lot of movies that are old like that, but they always make the girls so annoying. Just with
She wasn't a good actress. None
the
of them really were.
right, but I think that happens in a lot of those movies where they want you to be really like, I don't know, just hopeless damsel type and
Mm.
very over dramatic and you know but and also kind of like dumbing them down because they weren't really like people back then.
Yeah, I was gonna say that might be a mixture of just the sign of the times with the writing, but
Yeah,
also the acting is very vaudeville and over the top, kind of like
right,
theater, and I feel like that was also really common around that time, where
right.
theater and vaudeville was still really prominent, and that was kind of the big exaggerations that were
Right.
just kind of carrying over.
But just there was this one time, he was just walking away, Charlie, Charlie, and
Shut.
yeah, just over and
Yeah.
over again, and I'm like, bitch, he hears you. He's ignoring you.
Mm-hmm.
If you
I
keep saying it like that, and then he did end up smacking her, and that was like the one point I was like, yeah, dude, bring.
James, you're not supposed to be on the side of
Oh, it's so
spousal
wrong.
abuse.
It's so wrong. But just Charlie, Charlie. I'd,
Oh, I
dude,
scared my dog.
I'd smack a toddler if they were doing that, dude.
Come here, Brandy. I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I mean, just I don't want to just talk about the things that, are obviously better now because of technology, but that any scene where someone's trying to like destroy stuff or, like that scene where he's trashing his
Like
room.
licked all over the room.
No, it's
Just like,
so sad. It's so fucking sad. And I thought about it, and it's like, well, maybe that was the point where it's like, oh, this big man, right, is kind of not so big and tough. I didn't interpret it that way. I interpreted it as like, this is gonna be sick, guys. He's gonna destroy this room, and then be kind of embarrassed by it. But there's that scene in the show, Kidding with Jim Carrey, where they hook up the camera to like a crane or a pole, and then they put that on the desk, and he flips it, so it's like
oh, so it shows it flipping upside
yeah,
down.
it's kind of like like as he pushes it, it like tracks with him. Obviously, they couldn't do that at the time.
Yeah, because of course when they say that, they're not saying like, it beats every new movie in every single way.
Yeah,
I, it's like you also have to factor in, the times.
sure.
But
And I also,
I just some of the stuff in that movie, man. I mean, yeah, but it definitely was like a good looking movie. To say that, and it started kind of interesting. I
Mhm.
just, you never hear about like whatever happened with his parents that just
Yeah.
kind of like sent him off, and
Mhm.
then, you know,
Well, it's kind of subtle where just before that flashback scene ends, which I don't want to talk about in a little bit, but when he's like when he's like, all right, you're gonna go now with this guy, and he's like, no, and he hits him, and
mm,
then the dad is like, oh, I'd give him a good smacking, and then the mom is like, that's exactly why I'm sending him away. Like it's very just like brushed over. The dad was hitting him, and she didn't like that. And yeah, what you said about it being a good-looking movie, it certainly isn't on a technical perspective. I think this film has really everything that someone would look for. It has really great transitions. It has a lot of great
yeah,
perspective and shots and yeah, I can't think of the word right now. I feel silly, but film language is what I was looking for. It has a lot of cool meanings with the shots and that scene when it shows him playing and then it zooms out or pans out and you see it's the window and then it keeps going and you see I think it's the dad I forget his name to be honest, but the guy who's gonna take Charlie under his wing, and then the mom, and for that whole shot you see the power that each character holds, where the mom is like making the decision, so she's the closest. The new guardian of Charles Kane is in the middle. The dad is kind of he's protesting, but he's not really making a difference. And then Charles, who is oblivious to all this, is in the way background. Um, and something like that is really, really cool. And they've done that in a bunch of different movies, like Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean, good old James Dean,
oh yeah,
where it's that staircase and the mom is on the top, he's in the middle, the dad's at the bottom. Um, I wrote down there's another really cool shot like that in a different movie. Um, oh, I guess not.
you fucking liar.
I know, right?
But yeah, okay, so when I say I don't like it, I mean it didn't hold my attention, and the story I was just kind of like about.
Yeah.
But just as someone that appreciates movies, I think
Mhm.
it was very well done.
Yeah.
Considering the times and everything like that, I
Mhm.
appreciate it as a movie. But it's kind of like it's kind of like liking a singer, or not necessarily liking a singer, not liking their songs and all that, but recognizing that they have a talented
Okay.
voice and all that.
Okay, I get you.
That's kind of how I look at it.
Okay.
Like, I see what people are talking about with it being kind of revolutionary and all that, but
Definitely.
it's just not something that, I'm bored on a rainy day and I'm gonna
Hmm.
watch a movie. That's not the one I'd put on.
Yeah, you'd probably put on a Spy Who Dumped Me or something like that.
That was a good one.
It was. I watched that yesterday. That was pretty good. But
Yeah, I want to
I,
finish that.
mm, I want to say though, for me especially, the first time I watched it, I was pretty interested in it. It held my attention. But then the second time around the 1 hour mark, I was starting to really feel it. Where I was like, this is kind of slow. And what I realized that I didn't the first time, I don't think this really follows the three-act structure that most movies do. And I
No,
think
it does not.
because
Yeah.
it's this one guy who is learning everything through flashbacks, but those flashbacks don't really. I feel like they don't really show the change because it's someone who is retelling someone else the story. So it's if it wasn't flashbacks, right? If it was structured differently, where I don't know if this would be quite as interesting, but if instead of it started with him dying, but if that was just the end, and they showed his life as opposed to some guy trying to find it and having it through flashbacks, I feel like all these big moments that made him change were just kind of skipped over because someone's like, oh, well, he met this person, then he became some kind of political figure, or then he lost that, and the
Running
paper went under,
for
and
governor.
all this stuff.
Yeah, he was running for governor.
That's right.
That's what it was, and they all were saying he could be president, and then he got kind of shit on in the papers.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I agree with you on that because I also found myself um being like, oh wait, he's old right now. Oh wait, he's like a college kid right now, or like just
Mhm.
dropped out, or oh wait, he's like 30 something in this one, because they would go, like flash
Yeah.
when he's this old, flashback when he's that old, and then back to this.
Hmm.
But I mean, in it, so like it would always take me a second to be like, oh, okay, so he's old in this one, so they're gonna be talking about whatever.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for a ton of movies that took place, I mean, that came out before this movie. I think, I mean, I don't know when. I've seen definitely some old movies. I don't know when they came out. Like, I don't know if Indemnity and blah, 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 came out before or after this movie, but there are a lot of shots that I think people still use to this day, like that scene when he and his second wife are at that table, and it shows after they talk for a while, it shows them in that wide shot where he's on this end, she's on the other end. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, oh man, they did that in like fucking Star Wars Episode 2, like when Anakin and Padme are at that table, and it's like, it's really effective to
dressing
show
each other with their eyes over a sliced pear.
exactly, man. It's a great way to show the distance, the physical and metaphorical distance between people. I was thinking about the first Tim Burton Batman movie did that
Yeah.
for a bit of a comedic beat when I think she's like, "Oh, can you pass the salt?" And he's like, "Huh?" Because then it cuts that
Yeah.
wide, and they're like at total opposite ends of this big grand table. And she's like, "Can you pass the salt?" And he like gets up and gives it to her. Um, I mean, yeah, like these things though that I've been thinking about, like perspective is really good when they kind of have that when he's anytime he's doing like a major speech. The camera's tilted, so you have to look up at him. When they first show the mansion, you see the gates, and it's looming in the background, and it's kind of at that same angle where you have to look up at it, and it's really good on a
Yeah.
technical level.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think it really definitely paved a way um, for making them. I mean, oh my, the shots too are really nice because it's black and white, so you get those like big shadows and it's kind of like a noir style almost with these like big shadows and looks really cool.
Yeah, I love. I mean, one shot I thought was really funny was, he's got this. What's that called? That's like kind of the entrance to a house, but there's a roof on it. There's like a name for it. It's like when you first enter a house and you're still like kind of outside. It's not a porch.
It's not an awning, is it?
That sounds kind of right. Either way, they were there,
Mm-hmm.
and you could see like perfectly square between the two pillars is this beach that just doesn't look like the way it's supposed. Like it looks like they took the image of the beach and kind of just like flipped it a little bit.
Oh,
And I thought that looked so funny. Like I was just
yeah.
like, I mean, forgiven. Obviously, it's an old movie. They were just trying. It was probably a fake background that they had to put in as best they could. But
Yeah,
I
maybe
thought it
even
was
matte
so
painted.
funny because it looked like they did it just like they're like, yeah, this is good, but they put it like 90 degrees fucked
Mm-hmm.
up. Just sometimes I didn't. I had trouble picking up on the emotion
Mm-hmm.
with the actors because I feel like Charlie Kane had the same voice throughout the whole fucking movie. Like there are a couple times where he yelled, but he had the exact same tone all
Mm-hmm.
throughout when he wasn't yelling. And then so I was just like, is he pissed off or like cuz there was that time where him and his friend came in all drunk and that was supposed to be this one like I'm opening up and I'm saying all this shit that I think about you
Oh, right, right.
and and then he's just supposed to be like, yeah, well, I'm containing my anger right now, but I'm really pissed at you. And I got that after the fact because like yeah, he said that shit, but it
Mm-hmm.
seemed like he was just kind of brushing it off because he was drunk and he was just like, all right, yeah, toast or whatever, and then it just cuts to him being like, yeah, Mr. Kane and Mr. Leland haven't spoken in years, and I was like, holy shit, okay, so that did really piss him off.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were saying about like the women especially, but then that too, I feel like the characters I feel like are fairly one-dimensional.
Oh yeah.
I would say maybe obviously Charles Kaney's the lead, maybe a little less, but just the emotional range
Right,
is a bit
because the whole
one-dimensional.
thing with finding the Rosebud is like, oh, he did have a slight change in heart after whatever, and he didn't need the attention and shit.
Hmm.
Yeah, it was like a slight change, and you didn't even really see it. It's just implied.
Right.
It's an implied character change.
Yeah. Oh, can I say something interesting I found out about this movie? A little trivia for all you Flick fans out there. Sorry. Um,
It should be. But
but
continue.
yeah, Rosebud is named after Mar Moraine Davies Clitoris, and she was an actress, producer, and writer, which is pretty accomplished for the time, being a woman, being that like triple threat. Um, but she also had an affair with a newspaper tycoon, Randolph Hearst, who was the basis for Charles Kane.
Hmm,
So the Rosebud, if you interpret it that way,
it's a clit.
yeah, it's a clit, but that's so weird to me that like not only was there basically a real uh, Charles Kane who also was trying to, go into the political side of things, but Rosebud on another level was the nickname of his mistress. I just thought that was interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about the ending real fast? Because I think it's kind of an interesting one where
Yeah,
spoilers.
the last few minutes did catch me.
Mm-hmm.
That I will admit because I was starting to be like, all right, I mean, maybe I can like, end it here or whatever and I'll get the gist of it. But then, like it was him at the, where they were trying to get rid of all the shit.
Yeah.
I was like, I might as well find out what the fuck Rosebud is
Mm-hmm.
and just watching that. So where do you want to start from the ending anyway? Like what are you thinking
Well,
just like the end, very, very last
yeah,
scene.
yeah. I was thinking about what your thoughts were on the fact that this whole movie is them trying to figure it out, but they never do.
Yeah, because it gets tossed in the fire.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
mean, we as the audience know, but this whole
right, I
movie,
know the
they
guy that's
don't.
been interviewing whoever.
Hmm.
I think, it's like I was just kind of like, oh, that's what it is. But I think, he made the point right beforehand. That it was like, even if I do figure it out, because he got the whole gist of Charles Kane, where he's like, he's a dude that got a bunch of shit and lost a bunch of shit,
Yeah.
and so the Rosebud is probably just something that was on his mind that he had lost.
Hmm.
And that's what it was. And so he did kind of figure, he didn't find out exactly what it was, but he finds it. It's a sleigh or sled, whatever. What the fuck? It doesn't make a difference. He's just gonna be like, oh, okay, cool. It's this kid's fucking sled.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of like one of those endings and shit that I was kind of like, for me, I was kind of like, oh, okay, cool, that's Rosebud. But it doesn't make it for the actual reporter. I wasn't like, oh fuck, man, like that dude just is never gonna know or whatever, because it doesn't
Hmm.
really make too much of a difference. I wonder what would have happened if he had like stumbled upon the sled. Would have been like, oh my god, it says Rosebud. This is what it is, and now he knows that his last word was his sled before he died.
Yeah. And I guess for the audience, really, it's more important that we found out because it's the metaphor, right? It's like his childhood, his innocence.
Yup.
You can interpret it as many ways as you can, because like you said, it's like, all right, he writes the article, Rosebud was his sled. What does that mean to anyone? Like, if
Exactly.
you or I read that in the newspaper, we'd be like, okay.
Yeah. Well,
So,
shit. He lost his sled.
yeah, right. I guess they
Top
were
of
just
his two
more,
wives.
yeah, I guess they were thinking more of this guy was rich and famous, so we got to figure out what this meant. It may have had some meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I found a cat.
that's cool. I found a dog.
There you go. Hi, Brandy.
Brandy. She's been nuts today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, no, yeah, it just I'm glad I did watch it for
Hmm.
sure. Um, my dad really likes it. I found out.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, my teachers were always big on it in school, and yeah, I can definitely see why, especially as a teacher, for someone to say you should watch this movie, and you can learn a lot about it, because yeah, I think you can definitely learn a lot of basic film techniques. So it is an interesting movie to watch with context, and then see newer movies and be like, wow, like look how far things have come.
I can definitely see where they, I don't know. It's kind of hard to give it criticism for certain shots and everything just because of what they were working with back then.
Sure.
It's no, yeah, I definitely see why it was very appreciated for the time because if I think I had looked up that it was 40s or you told me it was 40s like a while ago or something. But if I had absolutely no context to that and someone told me that, I'd be like, huh. Because I could see like 50s maybe.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, it's definitely good for how old it is.
Definitely. On that note, James, you want to talk about any movies or shows you've seen? Any recommendations you might have?
Um, I mean, this one I haven't seen in a while, but I always recommend Young Guns because I feel like more and more people haven't seen it
I
as
don't think I have.
fucking amazing movie.
Very
Charlie
cool.
Sheen, Emilio Estevez.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god, great,
Nice.
great movie. I mean, if you're into the whole like cowboy thing, especially, but I was kind of like whatever on it. You know, like I was like, oh, the whole like cowboy like that's cool or whatever. But I was never like the one with the toy cowboy going like as a little kid.
Mm-hmm.
So, but no, one of my all-time favorite movies. I actually got it when my one of my grandfathers had passed away, and we were going through all the stuff, and I got some more books and then those movies because there's two of them, and it's actually kind of cool because um the first one is rated R, and the second one is rated PG-13. But the one that's rated PG-13 has worse shit in it because the first one came out before PG-13 was a rating.
Ah, interesting.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, when I found out that PG-13 was a relatively new rating system, like
It's like 1990, I think.
yeah, like Moonstruck, right, is a good example because that I thought would be PG-13 because there's a lot of sex in it and stuff, and I think some swearing, but nothing too bad. And then it's PG, and I was like, no way. And then someone, I think it was probably my mom because she loves that movie. She was like, no, because back when I was a kid, there weren't PG-13. It was just like PG and R, right? I think,
Yeah,
and maybe G,
I
or maybe that's new too. Yeah.
think G
Um,
newer than PG, but
hmm, maybe. Yeah, so check out that movie, guys, if you want. I definitely will, because you recommended to me, I think in our first episode, A Spy Who Dumped Me or The Spy Who Dumped Me, and I saw that recently. It was really funny.
it
So
is.
I double recommend that. But for a new movie, Less Than Zero, with Robert Downey Jr., it's a drama, a little something different than a comedy that we usually will talk about. But that's a really, really good movie. I just saw it this morning, actually, and it's about he is a drug addict, as most of the people in the movie are, and he just graduated high school, and it's 6 months later, and his friend Jeannie, I think is her name. He's Julian, I forget her name. Um, she also does coke and stuff. You know, it's the '80s, baby. Everybody's doing blow. But and then the friend who I also forget his name, which you'd think I'd remember because it was this morning. But he does not do any drugs, and he comes back during Christmas vacation, and he basically just sees like all of his friends ruining their lives with drugs. And Robert Downey Jr. is great in it, and it's a really cool movie. It's based on a book.
Less than zero.
Yeah, Less Than Zero. It's sad though, especially because you know that Robert Downey Jr. was a major drug addict and had a lot of arrests. Um, which kind of got me thinking. I was like, wow, it's almost weird in a sense, where in the '80s he was playing these characters that were drug addicts, and it's messed up. Honestly, there are some scenes that are really not even they're not gory. They don't show a lot, but I think that even makes it more effective because you can sort of imagine maybe the pretext before that scene happens, and it's really visceral. I think there's a scene where he owes this guy a lot of money, so he's like, all right, why don't you work for me? And then it cuts to him leaving a motel room, and
Yeah.
you're like, did he have sex with someone? Like,
Oh
but
fuck
then
yeah, he did.
yeah, and you find out that the guy, when he says come work for me, it's like, hey, suck this dude off, fuck this guy, and you kind of realize like, oh shit, like that's that huge desperation that his character is having. He's like, that literally like, I'll suck your dick for crack kind of thing. Uh, so they don't ever show him, doing anything, but you think it, and then they kind of tell you, and you're like, oh my god. And there's a scene where he is basically going through withdrawal, almost like in Train Spotting, but not quite the same. With him and his two friends who are kind of helping him, and he's just vomiting and he's sick and they're crying, and it's very emotional.
Hmm.
Very good though, very good.
I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah,
Yeah. I wonder if my dad's seen that. I'll have to ask him because
maybe.
He's always trying to do a fucking movie night thing. So if he
Yeah,
hasn't, check that one out.
yeah. I almost don't want to read the book because with the book, right, they can just go into such detail. I don't know if I can handle that as a like a casual as a casual read.
Lips.
Yeah, right. Just as a
As
casual
Hugo
read.
just started to enter.
Julian's penis started entering his rectum. His eyes were, glossed over from the drugs. Like Jesus Christ.
Damn.
I don't know if I I'm sure it's a really good book. I don't know if they go into that kind of detail. I don't know if I can handle it.
Yeah.
I like to read to kind of calm down, like relax. So I don't know if that would be a good time.
Read about graphic drug fueled butt sex.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if I'm in the mood for it.
Doesn't
Who
yeah,
knows?
maybe that'll calm me down.
Yeah, just before bed. Get some weird dreams from that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But
All right.
yeah, on that note, guys, thank you for watching. And like we always say, if you guys want us to talk about anything in particular, leave us some comments and we will get to it. And make sure to give this video a like and subscribe again. So, thanks for
Well,
watching, guys.
thank you guys.